All right, we are live. Welcome into the Daily Huddle. Jared, how are you?
Awesome. How are you doing?
Good. How was your weekend? Oh my gosh, you buzzed your hair.
Well, I didn't mean to buzz it, but it ended up going a little shorter than I planned.
Okay, how many times have I heard you say that? For those of you that don't know, Jared cuts his own hair. He's been doing this for how long?
25 years.
Yeah, forever. And most of the time it turns out okay. But sometimes
that's going to be the next emoji next to the Daily Huddle.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's going to be the Clippers, right?
Yeah.
I was telling my kids, by the way, that you love to do that in a hotel, in the hotel bathroom, because then you don't have to worry about all the hair mess. They're like, Dad, that's disgusting. I'm like, hey, I'm not saying I do it. I'm saying Jared does it. So anyway, hopefully you clean it up.
Always.
Okay. So let's get started. For those that are new to the Daily Huddle, we're live on YouTube. We're live on multiple Facebook accounts, soon to be live on LinkedIn as well. And we just take 15 minutes, real quick, leadership huddle. Our thoughts on what's happening around us. We work with at the firm partners in leadership. We consult with organizations around the world, all kinds of industries. And so one of our intents in the Daily Huddle every day at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, is to share with you things that we're hearing, what's working, what's not working, thoughts we want to share with you based off of how to navigate this period of massive disruption. So we start off by sharing a quick headline that stands out to us. Jared, you go first.
Yeah,
in the last 12 hours.
I love this one. So I saw it this morning. Microsoft Word has apparently told us that 2 spaces after the period is now wrong. So all the Microsoft programs are getting updates so that if you double space after a period, you get that little blue squiggly line that now tells you have made a mistake. So we have to now fix our ingrained habit of learning to type a certain way by hitting that space bar twice after every period.
You've been doing 2 spaces?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm antiquated. I'm a dinosaur apparently. But Microsoft Word is now going to give you that squiggly line.
Perfect.
Change that.
I think it was like 2 years ago. I don't remember exactly when, but I was doing double space. Oh, I know when it was. It was when I was working on a manuscript for a book, and the copy editor came back and he's like, "What are you doing? Like 2 spaces after a period?" And I thought he was a fool. I'm like, "Yeah, that's what you do." And then I think I Googled it or asked a few people, and they're like, "No, that changed like years ago. It's 1 space." I think my kids, I brought it up with my kids, like, "Dad, 2 spaces?" So anyway, glad to see Microsoft Word coming along. Okay, so my share is, let's see if I can put this up on the screen. So this is the Las Vegas Strip, right?
Wow.
Look at that image. Isn't that crazy? Just how like this is within just the last few days. And up there on the top right hand corner where you see, "We can't wait to welcome you back." That's actually the sign on the marquee of whatever hotel that is. Wow. And there's a story in the New York Times. I think they published it yesterday or this morning. And it talks about how Las Vegas is probably more impacted by all the disruption with COVID-19 than any other city. Guess what unemployment is at? Their best guess on unemployment right now in Las Vegas.
Oh man, I have no idea, but that strip employs everybody who lives there.
Like a ton of people, right?
Yeah.
So their best guess on unemployment in Las Vegas is 25%.
Wow.
A quarter of the population. And this article went on to talk about the long lines at 4:30 in the morning at the places that are giving out food. It's just, I mean, a third of the Las Vegas economy is dependent on tourism, hospitality, all of that, and they're completely closed down. So anyway, hopefully that won't last too much longer. Two other quick headlines, Jared. I usually we do one, but I wanted to throw 2 others in there because they're on my mind. The second one is the PPP loans, the Paycheck Protection Program, I think is what that stands for. The money ran out, right? After like 13 days of businesses applying for that. So the new funding becomes available today, right now, I think, or within an hour or two. And they're expecting massive amounts of small businesses to apply for that. So those of you that own or are at a small business, our guess is you're working on that today.
Russ,
And
the
then,
other one that I looked at was I
yeah,
sent you a text over the weekend on if you guessed why the oil prices are doing what they're doing.
yeah,
I don't know if you can see this. Let me see if this will work if I just hold this up to the camera. But this is a view of these 27 tankers off the coast of California where the Coast Guard, that's getting a lot of glare.
yeah.
But the Coast Guard shows all 27 of these tankers sitting off the coast of California. They got nowhere to put this stuff. That's why the
Crazy.
oil prices are doing what they're doing.
Yeah, that image is crazy. All those tankers sitting right off the coast. By the way, the last headline I wanted to share was we're going to learn a lot this week from companies that are scheduled to release their earnings. I'm just going to go through this real quick. Just listen to this list. Tech companies scheduled to release their earnings this week, the quarterly earnings. Alphabet, which owns Google, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, pharma companies, Pfizer, Merck, oil companies, Exxon, Chevron, BP. Those are just a few of the companies that are releasing earnings this week. So it's going to be really interesting. I think we know how that story ends, or at least for
Did
the
you
last
just say
quarter.
Alphabet owns Google?
Yeah, did you not know that?
No, I didn't know
That's
that.
the name of the parent company.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
Alphabet.
Alphabet.
Alphabet's the name of the parent company. You knew that. Come on.
Wow, I didn't. Yeah.
Okay, so the topic we wanted to get into today was is around how do you as a leader accelerate the speed of your team? Speed is so critical in this moment. I made a post on LinkedIn earlier this morning, my daily morning post, a quick video about accelerating speed, and I shared an example of what Amazon does to teach speed in their culture of more than 650,000 employees. Speed's so critical because if we don't adapt, if we don't move fast enough during this period of disruption, when demand is shifting in incredible ways, then we're going to be left behind individually, as teams, and as organizations. Right, Jared?
Yeah, totally. To me, I keep getting struck by the comment that I've heard from several leaders recently about getting out of the way and letting people deeper in the organization step up and get things done. And accelerating movement is getting the bureaucracy, the red tape. We had another leader, the CEO of a large trucking company, who said, he called it organizational constipation. We got to remove the organizational constipation, right? We get stuck in our systems and process and structures, and we slow down. And sometimes it's just about just getting some of that released and let people go.
Yeah, no question. And a good thing to ask ourselves right now is, are we slowing the organization down? Are we speeding it up? And we did a live online about this, which is a virtual meeting I think it was a couple of weeks ago. And we talk about visibility, framing up speed under this kind of umbrella, if you will, of visibility. Every leader right now is working, or has since COVID-19 came onto the scene. Every leader is working on being more visible,
just showing up, right?
That's right. So whether it's a daily huddle that we're doing, we're like a leadership team huddle, or whether it's trying to make sure that we're calling our colleagues, our teammates more often. Whatever visibility looks like, we're all increasing visibility. Why? Because we're trying to increase speed. Jared, as we started thinking about this as a firm, about how visibility impacts speed, you want to talk about the other two words that came up in that discussion?
Yeah, the reason why these other two words came up is, as we talked with leaders, we heard leaders that were actually doing all the things to show up, but still weren't getting the impact they were looking for. They were going to the town halls and doing the virtual meetings and increasing the frequency of those things, but they were still feeling like things weren't picking up or moving, and they weren't getting people engaged. So we recognized there was actually two components to this that actually take visibility to the next level. The first one is transparency. And it's transparency and accessibility are the two. So when you look at transparency and accessibility, when you have a leader who can add to just showing up, being accessible. Another way of thinking about this, have you ever had a leader who was visible but not accessible? And you all say, well, absolutely. In fact, one of the senior leaders of a large restaurant chain that we'd been working with, 1,200 general managers in this massive conference, and he gave all of them his cell phone number and said, if you have any questions, any concerns, please text or call me. Here's my cell phone number. That's the far extreme of accessibility. The other side of that is transparency. You've got leaders who might be visible and accessible, but you don't feel like they're really telling you the truth. They're not genuine. They're not forthcoming with what they have as information. They're not transparent. That also impacts how you feel about what you're doing in your business.
Yeah, and so you see on the screen this scale, right? If you had to rate yourself, and a really effective way of doing this is to consider how other people would rate you on a scale of 0 to 10 on visibility. What would that look like? On accessibility, what would that look like? In transparency, what would that look like? So we kind of, as we started talking about this with our colleagues at Partners in Leadership, a team of us that are working on these live online, these free Zoom meetings we're doing every Tuesday, which we'll talk more about in just a second. We looked at, well, how do you really impact speed, the speed of your team, the speed of your organization? And you see on each one of those accessibility, which is on one end is us being, everything's kind of, I'm locked up, I'm behind a closed door, you can't really get to me. On the other end is the story that Jared talked about. Here's my cell phone number. Feel free to text me or call me at any time. On the transparency range, it's, you've got your shades on. You're not really, you could be shady, so to speak. You're not really telling everybody exactly what you need to share or the facts that are out there. And then on the other extreme of transparency is, here's everything. Here's all the data. Here's where we are as an organization. So when you look at where you want to show up and how you want to be visible, on one end, you could be leaning into accessibility, or you could be leaning into transparency, but you're not really accessible. And the sweet spot really is right there in between both of them.
Yeah, it's that combination of both accessibility and transparency added to showing up that actually gets people. I mean, if you think about the impact of candor in your organization, if people actually tell you what they're seeing, if your team is actually candid with you about what they're feeling and experiencing and their role and their part of delivering on the result or the project or whatever it is, the more candor you can create as a leader, the more information you have. The more information you have, the better decisions you can make. So when you start looking at what Russ has just laid out here, the ability to have accessibility and transparency combined with showing up all leads to increased trust and candor and information so that you can make better decisions as a leader, which directly equates to speed and movement in whatever you're doing in your business.
Yeah, decisions are having to be made at such a faster speed, right? We have to make decisions with less data. We need to make decisions with less collaboration or discussion or debate than we have in the past. But you can't move completely away from those things. But we can't lean as far into them as we used to, because the market is demanding. Disruptions by their very nature demand that organizations are more agile than they've ever been. And what determines whether an organization is agile? The leaders. It's the leadership of the organization, the leadership of the teams. And so those three words are what we would impress upon you today. Just think about these questions. How visible am I? And visible is something I control. I'm pushing it out.
It's table stakes. Are you even showing up?
I mean, yeah. If you're not good at that, you should already be dealing with challenges this deep into this disruption. So visibility, the number of emails I'm sending out, not meaninglessly emails, but data that I'm getting out, keeping the team clear on what I need them focused on. How many phone calls am I making, reaching out to team members or other departments, to customers? How visible am I with town halls or with team meetings? Are the cameras on? That's visibility. Then accessibility is, am I answering phone calls? Because if I'm pushing the team to move faster, but they can't get to me, they can't get a hold of me, that's not increasing the speed of our team. They need to be able to get a hold of me at any moment. And then transparency, Jared, of course, that last thing on transparency is when I'm accessible, when I'm visible, am I sharing data and information?
Yeah, it's things like it's answering emails. And if you're not good at email, if that's not a fast way, for me, I'm terrible at getting back to emails quickly. I don't check my email until 24 hours later in most cases.
That explains so much.
But if you want to get me fast, you got to text me. So I send out my cell phone to everybody, because texting me is, if you need something quick and urgent, you've got to text me. Otherwise, it's going to take 24 hours for me to get back to you on email. So if you're creating experiences for people that are missing, you're not being accessible because people are trying to access you in ways that doesn't work for you, then you need to inform people of the right way to be able to get a hold of you so that you can be accessible. And on Russell's point on transparency, you really ask. In fact, we used to do this with leaders all the time. We'd have 300 people in a room. That seems like 12 years ago that used to happen, right? But we'd have 300 people in a room, and we'd have a leader telling us something on the sideline saying, well, this is what's happening in our business. And he would be very candid, or she would be very candid with us about it. And we would say, well, just say that in front of the 300 people. Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I can say that. And we'd say, if you had any 3 of these people sitting right here with us in this little huddle, would you tell them the same thing you just told us? And they all said, well, yeah. Well, what's the difference between saying it to the 300 if any 3 of them were sitting here right now on the sideline? We just aren't as transparent. We get all these weird blocks in our brain of what we can and can't say. And there's obviously some things that you need to be careful of. I mean, just take Trump as an example of what to say or not to say sometimes. But when you look at what we do to be transparent, there's an opportunity here to be more transparent in most cases.
Yeah, absolutely. I think going back to speed being so critical, the question needs to become, how do I as a leader impact it? And for me, those 3 words really helped me capture how I need to be showing up. Even if you've got no direct reports, you're not the leader of the team. Those 3 words are critical in how you show up on the team. Okay, so a couple of things before we wrap up this quick daily huddle that we're doing every day for about 15 minutes at this same time on YouTube, Facebook, soon to be LinkedIn Live. So there's a podcast that deals with all of these topics where we go into more depth on them. It's called Leading During Uncertainty. You can search any podcast app and you'll find interviews with executives. You'll find the audio from the live onlines that we're going to talk about in just a second. But so if you haven't yet discovered this podcast, we'd encourage you to go search whatever podcast app you use for Leading During Uncertainty. Jared, talk real quick about the Tuesday live onlines.
Yeah, so every Tuesday we do a more formal presentation of new content or content that we've been using for 30 years and applying it to our current situation that we see every day with this shutdown and how businesses are trying to operate in this environment. But we actually share with you about 15, 20 minutes worth of content in those Tuesday meetings. And then we open it up. We have a global audience that's coming to these things. And we actually ask for questions. Tell us what's on your mind. What do you want help with? And we're coaching and guiding people based on all the years of doing this professionally that we've done right in the moment. And the feedback's been tremendous. We're getting tons and tons of people coming to us, and this is so valuable. So we would really encourage you to go register. You can go to partnersandleadership.com, look for Leading During Uncertainty. There's a scroll that comes across the main screen, and register for the Tuesday live onlines at 9 a.m. Pacific. 9 a.m., right? No, 10 a.m. Pacific.
10 a.m. Pacific.
10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern.
Yep. And 1 a.m. in Singapore. I just have to know that because we keep having people from Singapore and other parts. I Googled after a few of those live onlines with people from Ireland. I'm like, well, what time is it in Ireland right now? What time is it in India? Yeah. And people tuning in. It's been awesome. Okay, that wraps up. We're already past our mark. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody. Stay healthy. We hope you have a good one.
Thanks, guys.